Red vs. Blue Season 18, Episode 8 for Power Part 2. The season finale has officially released, so let me break it down for you. Well, if you thought the episodes in the middle of the season had a lot of action, I don't know what you were expecting from the season finale. I somehow went into this fully expecting there to somehow be more action than there was prior, and that's exactly what we got. Almost 14 minutes of pure action fight scenes, and this time things just felt so lackluster and not great. Alright, so at the end of last episode, we saw Zero get his super armor enhancement, so now he's more powerful than he was prior. So how did the characters combat this? Oh, Raymond just increases their armor enhancements to double. You know, that thing they've never mentioned or did prior. Now everyone's just doubled in strength. It genuinely doesn't affect anything except for the new and improved Zero is somehow weaker. He's all over the place, unfocused, and it just doesn't look good that in your season finale, the main villain is weaker than he was halfway through the season. It kinda screwed itself over by not having him ever get touched. Like, not once did the characters ever land a single blow on him prior to this encounter. And it doesn't help that the characters didn't exactly learn anything that would help them actually win. It's the same group, same number of people he's gone against before. Just now they're somehow capable of fighting him off. Then there was Carolina versus Diesel. A very boring kind of fight, if I'm being honest. Diesel was such a non-character. He was there, he did things, he smashed, being the muscle, but he had like less than 15 different words. He didn't have a motivation, he wasn't a character. He's frequently cursing the freelancers, but it's like, do you have some sort of vendetta against them? Who are you in this whole Ponzi scheme of ultimate power? Zero and FaZe were both in the same program, but were you also a part of that? What did you want to accomplish? Diesel doesn't exist, and he doesn't have the personality to get away with the lack of backstory. Then there was FaZe, and I don't exactly know what happened here. Her and West are still fighting. I thought they resolved it physically for the most part last episode, but whatever, they're still brawling. West ends up killing East with a grenade, which sends her back to FaZe or something. And then West says he's willing to die, to which FaZe just knocks him out and then goes back to the main characters and proceeds to work with them to stop Zero. Everyone just accepts FaZe as helping out, as well as proceeding to work in perfect tandem with her. It just feels so unnatural. I was expecting at the get-go them to be referring to her as East because that's the person as a group that they've come to know and formed their relationship with. So, you know, it would be a way of showing that they were still worried about her and what was happening to her. But no. They just call her FaZe, acknowledge she was their enemy, but you're on our side now, so cool, I guess. It all just feels very random, out of nowhere, spur of the moment. They had FaZe, who's also East, who's been a very serious character who hasn't really been cracking jokes or one-liners. Cracking one-liners in tandem with one. A lot of characters were saying a lot of jokes throughout it, which inherently isn't a problem. Red vs. Blue is known for this type of thing, but it just doesn't work with this group of characters. I'm pretty sure it's just the fact that the writers weren't capable of pulling it off. Instead, the moments just felt so awkward and often just got in the way of what was happening. So anyway, Zero winds up not actually getting defeated, but he pretty much did. But he is instead whisked away by Black Lotus and disappears into the wind. Everyone is all a team and reveals their real names, and everyone leaves off on a cliffhanger. To be continued. Unless people don't want it, probably. Who knows what companies choose to green light for new seasons nowadays, despite what the audience wants. Listen, the last two episodes weren't great. But I don't want you to think that everything in this season was terrible, because it wasn't. The fight animators and choreographers have a lot to be proud of. Some people think the fights are too dizzying or whatever. Personally, I love the way the fights looked, so there's nothing to be ashamed of with how they technically pulled off the fights. The problem I had with many of them were not because of how they looked, but how they sometimes didn't have any real meaning or weight behind them. Without the proper story to build up to the fight isn't going to be as impactful when it happens. It works for Death Battle because I know a lot of people who worked on this season are from Death Battle, animators, writers, etc. It works there because you don't need the proper story that places two characters to fight against each other. It just happens after the ever so slightest bit of setup. And that's how the fights wound up playing here too. Very minor setup to just the action. And that simply doesn't work for an actual series. So that's why a lot of fights wound up lacking weight here. I also wasn't a fan of a lot of the new things they threw in. All of the new weapons and aliens, it starts venturing further and further out of the familiarity of what Red vs. Blue is and begins to feel like an anime with a Halo armor pack equipped on the main characters. Like, why does Diesel wield an alien axe? Why can't this just be a gravity hammer? It does literally all the same things. It just feels like the characters are pulling random shit out of a utility belt that shouldn't be there. I know after season 17 I said that I think that they should focus on characters who aren't the Reds and the Blues, and that's exactly what happened this season. And after seeing this season, I can start to agree that it definitely wasn't the best choice. But at the same time, it really shouldn't have been season 18 to begin with. I think if they are going to go down the path of not including the Reds and the Blues, they should just have these as spin-offs and miniseries. This really shouldn't have been season 18, but it might have had a better reception if it had just been called a spin-off the entire time. By having spin-offs, you don't have to include cameos. Tucker, Carolina, Wash have no real reason of being here. And it was quite tragic what you guys did to Tucker this season. He did literally nothing and was kind of only disrespected. In spin-offs, there should be at most things that allude to taking place in the same universe. So if it's really bad, you can just retcon it. But you can't retcon this season. Well, you can, but it's way more noticeable than if it were a mini-series. Then again, I don't think RT will do it because from a business standpoint, the title of Red vs. Blue will get more views than a new IP or the label of mini-series. Once again, this is company versus consumer, and RT doesn't necessarily value what is best for the consumer. Guys, this season was definitely disappointing. The action was incredible, but the story, dialogue, and overall writing as a whole was not good. It really let down what had some decent concepts. As the Shizno paradox showed us, a bad concept can set you up for immediate failure, and that was season 16. But with a decent writer, it can still manage to pull off a pretty good season, and that's how it ended off in season 17. This was the result of a pretty bad concept of ultimate power in tandem with some pretty shoddy writers who weren't capable of pulling it off. This season is kind of just what Red vs. Blue isn't. It doesn't evoke the soul of what the franchise is. It's just the brand with past characters shamelessly thrown into it for nostalgia. Guys, for me, it was just overall disappointing. If this was your first season of Red vs. Blue you've watched, please, I urge you to go back and watch the others because they are so much better and you will fall in love with them. But those are just my thoughts. What did you guys think of Red vs. Blue Zero as a whole, as well as this episode? Anything and everything, be sure to let me know in the comments below. And until next time, I'll see you in the next video.